Owning a beautiful, high-quality vertical planter like this GreenStalk can be expensive. However, that doesn't mean you should break the bank also trying to fill it with expensive plants and soil. Today, I'm going to show you how to do it on a budget. Yes, it can be done. Hey folks, if we haven't met before, my name is Tara and I garden in the Bay Area, California, and I've got a ton of videos on how to get going with your brand new GreenStalk vertical planter. All these tips and tricks to get you off to a wonderful start, and I've got an entire playlist that I've curated just for you, the beginner, as well as lots of hacks and tips that I think anybody who owns a GreenStalk will appreciate. So go check it out. I'll put a link to it here as well as at the end of this video. Now, this lovely sunny color is called Lemon, and it is brand new from GreenStalk in early June 2025. And I'm thinking I'm going to be filling it with flowers that are in the color scheme of orange, purple, yellow. These planters are going to gradually start to replace these old wooden planters that are literally falling apart in the four corners of this gazebo. Now, we did say that we're not going to spend a lot of money filling these GreenStalks, right? So that means we need to have a strategy. And the first part of that strategy is not to spend a boatload of money on buying plants. Behind me, I've got a collection of plants, and let me tell you how I put those together. This first tray here is full of seedlings that I started from seed. They're mostly zinnias. I've got a few snapdragons. I've got some marigolds, but learn to start plants from seeds. You can get much more variety than you can get in your nursery, and you will save a boatload of money. Seeds are really cheap, and it's so easy. Just stick a seed in some potting soil, and it'll grow, and 3 weeks later you'll have a little plant just like this that you can transplant into your GreenStalk. This tray here is mostly plants that I've started from cuttings. These are verbena. I've got another tray here of petunia cuttings. These are also really easy to root. All you need is a little stem that has a couple of nodes with these leaves coming out from it, and you stick it in some soil, and maybe in about 2 weeks you'll have rooted cuttings. And I've also got what's called root cuttings, which is you dig up a plant that is growing from the mother plant, and I've got calendula that way, and I've also got feverfew, and these here are society garlic. This you just need to dig up, and you've got bulbs that you can easily transplant into your GreenStalk. They've got beautiful purple flowers. Oh, and don't forget your volunteers. This here is a container full of marigold plants that I saw growing in a corner of my old GreenStalk. A little flower bud had fallen and the seeds had dried out enough that they were able to sprout. So I dug them all out carefully and I transplanted them, and now I have a whole bunch of marigolds that are ready to go to a new home. So I just wanted to cut to another part of my garden because I wanted to show you how I went on a treasure hunt to find a lot of little plants that I could put in my GreenStalk. So even as I'm walking on this pathway here, if you look down here, these are scabiosa seedlings, and I've got other seedlings like sweet alyssum, calendula, other things just sort of growing around here and there. Yeah, if you've got flowers in your garden, they will drop seed the following year and they will sprout in unusual places. And I've got lots of little seedlings that I can dig up, like this calendula here or this little marguerite daisy here. If you look carefully enough, you'll be able to find lots of gems that you can take and put into your GreenStalk. And this here is a beautiful coleus. It is called Flamethrower Serrano, and I loved it so much, but I noticed that it was getting eaten by something. So I quickly made a few cuttings, and I have a new plant that I can now transplant into my GreenStalk. My raspberry flower GreenStalks are badly in need of pruning. A lot of the plants on it are overgrown, and this is actually a great time to take cuttings and make new plants. Like these beautiful marguerite daisies, they could use a good refreshing by chopping off a lot of the old blooms and then allowing new growth to come so I can get some new beautiful daisies. So it does the plant good actually to take cuttings regularly and not let them overgrow. Here's another plant that grows easily from cuttings, geraniums. Yep, you can grow geraniums, you can grow violas, you can grow fuchsia from cuttings. So many plants grow really easily from cuttings, and they grow a lot faster than growing from seed. So look around your garden. I'm sure you'll be able to find lots of lovely things that you can then take and put into your GreenStalk. Look at these snaps. So I quickly wanted to show you how I take cuttings to keep that cycle of new plants going continuously. But before we do that, I am a GreenStalk affiliate, and if you could use my link for any GreenStalk purchases, it's in the description. I sure would appreciate it. And also, there is a $10 discount if you use the code GreenLove10. Thank you so much for all your support for my channel. So let me do also a quick spin around and show you how my summer GreenStalks are doing. And we'll grab that cutting. So I've not yet got all of my summer plants planted up, but the ones that I have already are really taking off. In about a month or so, you won't even be able to see these green stalks. They'll be completely overshadowed by plants like this large tomato plant, and then I've got eggplants, I've got coleus, I've got squash that's starting to peek out over there, and I've got peppers that are really trying to grow tall and leggy. That's one thing I've noticed about peppers in the green stalk is because they get shadowed out by things like this large tomato plant, even though it's a dwarf tomato plant, it does tend to shade out the pepper plants. And so I actually try to drag these pepper plants out like this so that they can get some sunshine and not get covered up by this large gorgeous dwarf tomato plant. If you guys haven't grown dwarf tomatoes before, you really should consider them, especially for the green stalk, because they grow no more than 3 to 4 feet tall, and they've been bred specifically to stay small. In addition to that, they produce full-size tomatoes. Let me show you another plant that I've got, not in the green stalk. So I've got 4 dwarf tomato plants growing here, but yeah, look at the size of this. It's a full-size tomato, and a lot of these plants are indeterminate, so they will keep producing throughout the season. They've got these rugose leaves. See these thick kind of leaves that makes them very, very disease resistant. So, they've got so many things going for them. They are indeterminate for the most part, full-size tomatoes, small plant, disease resistant, perfect for the green stalk. So get yourself some dwarf tomatoes, if not this year, maybe next season. However, anything else that is growing in this tier, this is the bottommost tier where this is coming up from. Gosh, it's so tall already. Obviously, it is stealing nutrition from the carrots and anything else. So just be aware that the tier in which your tomatoes are growing, the tomato is going to grow well and everything else isn't. Just something to keep in mind. That's one of the misleading things about the green stalk. You've got all these pockets and you think that you can plant different things, but really at the end of the day, they're all sharing the same container, and so they will steal from each other, and the weaker plants usually give up. Look at this pretty mazurka zinnia. And then let's see, what else do we have here? Calendula and parsley. Parsley grows so well in the green stalk. And I've got Roman chamomile that looks absolutely gorgeous cascading down. And then over here, I recently planted up some eggplant and some squash. And I've also got okra. This is Cajun jewel okra. It's a container okra, so it shouldn't grow very tall. I've got several of them planted up here. Yeah, I know you're probably wondering about this little trellis thing. Now, this is not a GreenStalk product. I actually got this on Amazon, but it's not as good as the GreenStalk one. It's kind of small, as you can see, so it doesn't go very deep and so not very stable. However, it's pretty neat in that you can actually stack these one on top of the other. There we go. So you can actually use this as a little trellis because you can keep stacking this as long as you can hold it in place. So I'm not really sure what you can trellis on this. I guess you can keep stacking it. So not really sure yet. Haven't made up my mind whether I like it or not, but a lot of people were buying it, so I had to buy it and try it out. I've got a couple more brand new evergreen basket weave towers that I set up just a couple of weeks ago. Planted beans in them for the most part. Look at them, they're all growing already. Now, a lot of people say that they have trouble growing beans or getting beans to direct seed in a green stalk. And the main reason for that, I think, is because the green stalk does tend to have a lot of moisture in the soil. We overlove our green stalks, don't we? Give it a lot of water. And then, of course, the watering system as well. And you don't want the pockets to completely dry out because they get hydrophobic. But the downside of it is because it's always moist, these bean seeds often rot before they have time to germinate. So just think about that. Maybe ease up on the watering when you've got bean seeds that you're trying to sprout in them. But look at these. These have all sprouted just beautifully. Then finally over here, this still hanging on from spring. A lot of celery, a lot of parsley, and then I've got this lovely dainty Isabel dwarf tomato that I'm trying to recover, but it's got such large tomatoes on it already, even though the plant is not that large. So yeah, the summer green stalks are doing well. I will continue to post updates as the season progresses. Okay, back to my plant collection. This here is Vinca, and I got this on clearance at my local nursery, and these are gorgeous flowers that will bloom relentlessly all summer long. And this celosia was on sale as well, and I couldn't resist buying it because it's such a pretty flower, and for some reason I've had difficulty growing it. I've got this little shiso plant that I got from someone on Nextdoor for free. That's another resource. People give plants away. I don't know whether I'm going to make it survive, but everything grows better in the GreenStalk, so I'm hoping this will also thrive. It actually grows really well once the weather gets nice and warm. And this plant here is called bloodleaf. Now, I love making cuttings from this because they're so easy to propagate. I'm actually probably going to make this a little bit smaller. It's looking a little too leggy for the GreenStalk, so I might chop it down and have it grow some new leaves from the bottom here and stay kind of short and bushy. And I'll have cuttings for a new plant. The second part of my strategy is the soil that goes into your GreenStalk. Now, soil can get pretty expensive, and if you want to buy the highest quality soil, it can run anywhere from $50 or $60 through $100 to fill a 5-tier original GreenStalk. So that's not small change, and anything that you can do to save money on soil, I think, is a good thing. Now, I DIY my soil mixes, and all my GreenStalks do really, really well. So I like to think that I've got the perfect recipe for GreenStalk soil, and I will put a link to it somewhere here. And it's really easy, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I do understand that DIY is not everyone's cup of tea. So I always say buy any potting soil that is on sale, but make sure that it's potting soil. You don't want topsoil or raised bed mix. Those kinds of things contain heavy material that will weigh the GreenStalk down. And the number one thing about soil success in the GreenStalk is to have lightweight soil. Perlite is something that lightens any soil medium, and it really helps with drainage. It helps with keeping the soil nice and aerated. So perlite is a really good amendment to add to any potting mix that you buy. In this case, I am using this big bag of premium potting mix, Miracle Grow potting mix, that is very commonly available in Costco. So I figured that a lot of people in the United States will have access to it, and hence I got this one. And it was on sale because it's kind of end of season, so win-win. So my recipe for my GreenStalk potting mix is simple. It is 1 part manure or compost, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part of a combination of vermiculite and perlite. Now, I go heavier on the perlite because perlite really lightens up the soil. Vermiculite is a lightening agent as well, but it tends to hold on to moisture. Perlite doesn't. It just creates those gaps in the soil. So I've got the mix in here, and I've gone a little heavier on the peat moss, a little lighter on the compost because it seems like it's really dense. And of course I've got my perlite and vermiculite, and I will add a little bit of this fertilizer to this mix as well. Now, you do want to wet this down. This will kick up quite a bit of dust, so I like to wet it down quite a bit before I mix it up. And definitely wear a mask. Okay, let's go ahead and fill up our first GreenStalk, which is going to have our DIY soil mix in it. And yes, I know my gloves are different colors, but who cares, right? Actually, they're both blue. I'm good. So we're going to do a little bit of an experiment. We're going to be filling this with my DIY mix, and we're going to be filling that with the store-bought mix, and we're going to plant similar plants in both of them and just kind of see which one does better. Because I keep saying that my recipe for GreenStalk soil mix is the best in the world, right? So let's go ahead and either prove that or disprove that. Now, I'm not sure whether this is going to be the final destination for this GreenStalk, so I do have the ultimate spinner base with wheels, so I can move it around. But I always put it on a slab. This is, I believe, 18 inches by 18 inches square. It's kind of just barely enough to fit the GreenStalk. I would rather get a little bit of a larger. They do sell these in larger sizes, I think like 24 inches by 24 inches. That would be much better for this, but that's all I had. So it's going to have to do. Now make sure that you place the tube, the exit tube, where you need it to go permanently, because once this GreenStalk is full, you don't want to move it around, especially with the wheels. It's gonna fall off this square, for me at least. So I put it at the back here, and I use a pretty shallow bowl to catch the water, and then I always reuse the water by pouring it back in. Now, that is also an advantage of this slab, is it creates a little bit of an elevation. So this tube is not flat on the ground. Without it, you're gonna have to get a really flat tray. Some people use empty milk cartons. I've tried that. It doesn't work very well. So yeah, this is good to give it a little bit of elevation. Two would be even better. And I put it with the tube facing backward, and then make sure that you lock the wheels, because this thing will slide around. There we go, I haven't locked the wheels. Now I like to actually fill this before I stack it. You can put it right here, bring your potting soil, and then fill it if it's easier for you that way. But always put something to cover this. So I'm using this paper cup to cover this hole while I fill it. But you can use like a shot glass, anything will work, just something to cover it so the soil doesn't fall through. And especially when you do the next tier up and you've got the gray saucer underneath, if you don't have something covering the hole, the soil is going to get in and fall into the gray saucer. And that's another reason why I like to fill it first and then stack it. But some people, that can be heavy to lift, so do whatever works for you. Now, you don't want any soil to get into these little feet. That will cause it to tilt when you put it on the next tier. So keep these little feet clean. I use something underneath, and then I fill it. Tamp it down just a little bit. You want to fill it all the way to the top. And I leave a little bit of a depression with my gray saucer. And I also push down the soil around this so that I can stack the next level nicely without any dirt getting in the feet. Okay, it's all set up. Such a pretty color. So I've decided that I'm going to be planting zinnias on the topmost tier. Now, these are actually full-size zinnia plants. These are not like dwarf zinnias. And I'm going to try an experiment because I just can't help myself. I love trying experiments. And these zinnias, if left to their own devices, they can grow upwards of 2 feet, 3 feet, maybe even 4 feet, right, given the right conditions. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to constantly keep pruning it so that it stays bushy and small, kind of like bonsai zinnia. I don't know how to do bonsai, but I would imagine that they continuously prune these things to keep them to a small size, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with these zinnias. And I'm going to intersperse them. I'm going to put 3 zinnias on the top tier, and then in between I'm going to be putting these celosia plants. So I think that'll look like a pretty combination, I hope. Now these are Queen Lime Peach and Queen Lime Orange, and they are really gorgeous zinnias. And this is actually GreenStalk seed starting tray. Super high quality, and I love these slits on the side because it helps with air pruning, doesn't allow the roots to get root bound, and they are so easy to push up. So if I want to push up these 2 here, all I need to do is, there we go. The plug is out, no disturbance at all to the roots, but I am going to be separating these. So I will gently pull them apart. Zinnia is actually pretty hardy. They can handle being torn a little bit, because did you know that you can actually take cuttings from zinnias and they will root very easily? So I might actually try that with these, but that also means that they're not too sensitive to their roots being disturbed. So let's plant this in here, and I always water it in as soon as I plant it. My mother taught me that. She said, you've got to give it that water of life and settle that root system as soon as you plant it in. Let me alternate it here with another one. And then on the 3rd pocket, I am going to be putting a different color. I'm going to be putting this Queen Lime Peach. I think it's going to be super pretty. Let me grab my garden hose. Oops, the water's off. Let me turn it back on. Turn on back garden. I've got all of my irrigation, including my hoses, automated, and I can trigger them from my watch. It's pretty cool. There we go. I gave it some water of life, Mom. I hope it grow well, okay? Mom's up there in heaven. So one thing that you need to remember to do is saturate each tier properly before you put the next tier on. Now, I didn't do that because I had already pre-moistened my soil, but make sure that the water is really, really well soaked. Otherwise, when you fill it up from the top here, the water is going to just flow right through. So you need to make sure that you fill it slowly and give it time to seep through. But before you even stack it, make sure that you wet the soil properly. You can see that there is practically no perlite or vermiculite in this mix. So I went ahead and finished this off camera because I am starting to lose daylight rapidly. But there you have it. 2 lemony fresh GreenStalks that are packed with flowers and personality and not a lot of cash. So let's recap the 2 experiments that we are doing. We've got 2 different kinds of soils, so we're going to see how both of them perform with similar plants, and we are going to be pruning our full-size plants, our zinnias particularly, and trying to keep them small and seeing whether we can get them to thrive in the GreenStalk. So follow along if you want to see how these plants progress over the course of time. I'm sure they're going to be bursting into bloom in no time at all. Give it just a couple of months and you'll see a huge transformation. And don't forget, check out my playlist with all those curated videos just for you. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.